I'm Tara Mergener. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, making the call. President Trump defends sending troops to end protests in Los Angeles. We'll have the latest. Sealing the deal. The White House secures a tentative trade agreement with China. Find out what's included for both sides. Never lose hope. Pope Leo XIV has advice for those who feel lost. And be a good sport. Learn why athletes and sports enthusiasts around the world are headed to the Vatican this weekend. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
And thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Barnabas, our top story tonight. Protests against immigration raids spring up across the United States. More are planned nationwide this week. President Donald Trump continues to defend his order to deploy troops. In fact, he says the people of Los Angeles are very lucky that he made the decision to go in and help. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tara, we can expect to see more demonstrations in the coming days, including so-called No King events taking place on Saturday. That's the same day the president's military parade will take place right here in the nation's capital. Tonight, right now, the focus is on L.A. and the war of words between President Trump and the governor of California.
At Joint Base Andrews, President Donald Trump tells reporters he wants to save Los Angeles.
I just want to see peace. If there's peace, we get out. If there's even a chance of no peace, we stay there until there's peace. And a lot of people are being arrested. The rioters, or whatever you want to call them, they better know a lot of people are being arrested. They're going to be in jail for a long time.
And today in the White House press briefing room, Caroline Leavitt taking many questions on the protests.
He wants law-abiding Californians to be able to bring their kids to school, to be able to go to work without seeing this violence in the streets. That's what the president's hoping for, and that's why he's taken this action.
L.A. police swiftly enforcing a downtown curfew, making arrests moments after it took effect. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom accusing President Trump of drawing a military dragnet across the nation's second-largest city with his escalating use of the National Guard.
Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point.
Governor Newsom also says democracy is under assault.
What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
Earlier, President Trump ordered the deployment of nearly 5,000 troops, including National Guard and Marines, to L.A., the press secretary defending the president's moves.
But President Trump will never allow mob rule to prevail in America. The most basic duty of government is to preserve law and order.
The numbers: 23 businesses looted. Los Angeles police making 197 arrests on Tuesday, including 67 who were taken into custody for occupying a freeway. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass declared a local emergency on the fifth day of protests and said the curfew would run from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. She expects it to last for several days.
And when you start deploying federalized troops on the heels of these raids, it is a drastic and chaotic escalation and completely unnecessary.
At least 7 police officers have been injured, and protest arrests include failing to disperse, assault with a deadly weapon, looting, vandalism, and attempted murder for tossing a Molotov cocktail. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Owen, thank you. Well, amid the growing violence, the head of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles is calling for a day of prayer. Archbishop Jose Gomez has asked parishes across the Archdiocese to hold special masses for peace and unity. He's asking Catholics and non-Catholics to pray for peace amid the riots. An interfaith prayer vigil had been scheduled for Sunday evening at Los Angeles City Hall. It was postponed amid escalating violence. A federal grand jury indicts New Jersey Representative LaMonica MacGyver over an incident at an ICE facility in May. Acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, announced the indictment on X, saying in part, quote, "While people are free to express their views for or against particular policies, they must not do so in a manner that endangers law enforcement and the communities those officers serve." MacGyver says the charges are an attempt to scare her. The indictment includes 3 counts of assaulting, resisting, impeding, and interfering with federal officials. Well, is the massive reconciliation bill at risk of falling apart? Fiscal conservatives are now demanding a number of changes, including the elimination of some provisions that were key to getting the bill across the finish line in the Republican-led House just last month. Now, key House Republicans are meeting with Senate leadership to work out a compromise. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric.
Good evening, Tara. 38 House Republicans, including members of the Freedom Caucus, are warning Senate Republican leaders against using budget gimmicks as senators continue to revise President Trump's big, beautiful bill. They're led by House Budget Vice Chair Lloyd Smucker. The congressman told Senate Majority Leader John Thune in the letter that, quote, any additional tax cuts must be matched dollar for dollar by real enforceable spending reductions.
We've been hearing about potentially significant changes they're talking about making to the bill, reducing some of those savings, adding additional tax cuts, and expenses. And we want to just remind everyone that any bill that doesn't comply with the House framework will not get the support of the 38 individuals who signed this letter.
Nobody can seem to get their mind around the fact that we need to cut spending in America. Republicans and Democrats need to come to grips with that.
Democrats are using the letter as a talking point.
Republicans who voted for a bill that they apparently dislike and then publicly sent a letter to their Senate Republican colleagues to say, stop these provisions from ever becoming law. I mean, that's the height of irresponsibility.
The current Republican-passed House bill contains $1.7 trillion in cuts. House conservatives are demanding the Senate not scale back those cuts or the $40,000 in federal deductions for state and local taxes, also known as SALT. Senator Tommy Tuberville tells me every state is different, and that will influence what changes need to be made.
If we don't think that something is going to be kosher for us and for the country's betterment, we're obviously going to try to change it. Now, we'll vote on whatever, and it's going to go back. I mean, there's going to be changes.
Our final bill is rapidly taking shape, and I'm looking forward to considering it on the floor in the very near future. Republicans promised to build a stronger, safer, and more prosperous America, and we're going to deliver.
Some Senate conservatives are also looking at deeper cuts to Medicaid and other assistance programs such as SNAP. Now, Republicans tell me that they still want to protect the most vulnerable, but they also want to crack down on those who are breaking the law. But SNAP cuts could affect major organizations like Catholic Charities. We want to let you know about that. We'll continue to watch and see what the latest comes out of these talks. Reporting at the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Eric, thank you. Lots of moving parts there. Well, following Elon Musk's outburst last week regarding that big, beautiful bill, President Trump tells the New York Post that he thinks it was very nice that the billionaire tech mogul apologized for attacking him on social media. Early today, Musk posted, quote, I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far. The feud seemed to simmer down over the weekend after Musk voiced support for President Trump's handling of the California protests. Musk also deleted a post in which he claimed without evidence that the government was concealing information about the president's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, President Trump says a new trade deal between the U.S. and China is done. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt celebrated the agreement during a briefing today.
China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States. And we have agreed to fully comply with the Geneva Agreement as well.
All right, the deal brings tariffs on Chinese goods to 55%, while China's tariffs on the U.S. will be 10%. Additionally, the U.S. will stop efforts to revoke the visas of Chinese nationals on college campuses. President Trump says he will be working closely with President Xi to get that agreement across the finish line. And we'd like to bring in Michelle Schultz, now founder and managing partner of Schultz Trade Law, PLLC. Michelle, welcome. President Trump says a deal has been agreed to now between China and the U.S. So what will this mean for global markets?
Well, for now, it still means wait and see. because a deal was reached last night in London around midnight, and it was essentially a framework for an agreement to extend our 90-day truce that was agreed in Geneva, Switzerland, back in May. So we do not have it yet signed by President Xi and President Trump. It's still a framework, and it's still waiting to be signed. So in my mind, we wait and see, but it gives us a little bit of hope.
Yes, it doesn't sound like quite a done deal. So we don't know yet if this is actually an end to the trade war, or are there still things, you know, even though it hasn't been signed, to be ironed out? I would imagine so.
I would imagine so. It's been my experience with free trade agreements that they take months, if not longer, to negotiate, and that you want to get all the terms right. So this would be a preliminary agreement, and I'm sure it's very positive, but I think it will take time to iron out the details. I think we're looking at about mid-August for the details to be fleshed out.
So a couple more months.
Yeah.
You think, when all is said and done. So interestingly, the deal includes a 55% tariff on goods from China and only a 10% tariff on goods from the U.S. So it seems like China cannot afford to raise tariffs. What do you make of these numbers?
I'm a little skeptical because China does have quite a bit of leverage, and their main leverage is with regard to rare earths minerals. Right now, they are pretty much our sole source of rare earth minerals, and we need those to make technology, cars, anything pretty much. We need rare earth minerals. So China has that leverage on us, and I'm a little confused why we would allow them to only have 10% tariffs on the U.S.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So quickly, if the deal is not approved, what do you think would be the reason at this point?
If it's not approved, I think it would be in the details. I think President Xi and President Trump have spoken, and their teams have spoken in London. But when we get down to the details, it's going to really put the rubber to the road. They will have to look at tariff codes, what tariff exemptions will be available. Is that 10% really fair? And there has been talk of allowing minerals to come out of China more easily, but I don't know. I don't know if China's really ready to do that. So there's a little hesitancy on my side.
As I say, the devil's in the details. The world will be watching. Michelle Schultz, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
So now to Ukraine, where another night brings yet another barrage of Russian drones and missiles, this time on Kharkiv. Crews rushed to enter apartments and homes to rescue those impacted. Several were killed and dozens more injured following the barrage of 17 drones on 2 residential districts in Kiev. This comes as recent Russian airstrikes damaged the historic Holy Wisdom Cathedral in Kiev, a structure tracing its history back to the 11th century. A grim milestone as Gaza health authorities claim more than 55,000 Palestinians have been killed in the Israel-Hamas war. This is officials say Israeli forces once again opened fire on Palestinians waiting for aid. This attack is the latest in an apparent pattern of disruptions at aid distribution sites. Eyewitnesses report scenes of panic and chaos as civilians dispersed after waiting for food and essential supplies. In Austria, a day of mourning and prayer after a deadly school shooting there. Today, hundreds gathered at the cathedral in Graz to celebrate Mass for the victims. Yesterday, 11 were killed when a 21-year-old man entered the school and started firing. The suspect was one of the dead. In attendance at today's Mass were the country's chancellor and vice chancellor, and even those who aren't Catholic showed up as a sign of unity and solidarity. Well, for the first time in his papacy, Pope Leo XIV has appointed a bishop in China. The Vatican announced today that Bishop Joseph Lin Yuntuan is the new auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Fuzhou in the eastern part of the country. In the announcement, the Vatican credited the Sino-Vatican deal signed in 2018 and renewed several times, which is intended to regulate the appointment of Chinese bishops. That agreement has been criticized for violations by the communist government and China's ongoing religious persecution. Pope Leo reminds the faithful that every time we cry for help, whether it is directly to God or not, he hears it.
Ha scelto liberamente di seguire colui che è la via.
At his weekly talk with pilgrims, the Holy Father discussed the healings performed by Jesus. He also invited the faithful to bring before the heart of Christ their most wounded or fragile parts. The Pope also called on the faithful to leave their safe havens and set out for new destinations, confident they will be protected by God. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. A big vote from the country's largest Protestant denomination. While the Southern Baptist conventions are calling on lawmakers to do. And it's no secret that Pope Leo polls for Chicago teams. Coming up, we speak to the vice president of one of those teams, who's a devout Catholic himself. A new study reveals some good news for pro-lifers. According to findings from Gallup, 43% of respondents identify as pro-life. That is a 2% increase from last year. Gallup also says 32% of women identify as pro-life. Among men, the number is 54%. The survey also finds that 57% of women believe abortion is morally acceptable. Among men, the number of 40%. The 17-point gap is a record high. The country's largest Protestant denomination is endorsing a ban on same-sex marriage. The Southern Baptist Convention is holding their national meeting this week in Dallas. Delegates endorsed the overturning of Obergefell v. Hodges, which legalized gay marriage in the U.S. They also called on lawmakers to support policies that promote childbearing, crack down on sports betting as well.
Anyone who saw the actual votes themselves saw that these were not really close votes by any stretch. They were passed with, I think, basically unanimous support, which I think is a healthy reflection of kind of where the theological consensus is of the SBC.
Now, coming up at 6:30 tonight, or p.m. rather, in an EWTN News original documentary, Mark Irons examines the rise of abortion and assisted suicide in Canada. Well, up next,
what does it take to preserve a nation, to safeguard basic human rights?
I can't think of a more important issue.
We travel to Canada.
We're not going to church anymore.
To learn what's happening within the culture.
There's a lot of people who are alone, who feel abandoned.
An EWTN special documentary.
The answer to this situation is not killing them, but that's what we've come up with in our country. It is completely upside down.
Canada, preserving the life of a nation. Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on EWTN.
All right, up next on EWTN News Nightly, another special jubilee is on its way in Rome. The deep link the Vatican is celebrating between the spiritual life and the world of sports. Plus, the vice president of the Chicago Bears, a devout Catholic, joins us to talk about the big weekend ahead in honor of Pope Leo. Weekend, the Vatican will host sports enthusiasts and faithful from around the globe to gather to the 19th major Jubilee event, the Jubilee of Sports.
Come dice San Paolo, noi corriamo nello stadio.
As St. Paul says, we run in the stadium for a medal, a crown that is fleeting. But sport gives us the awareness that in life we run for an incorruptible crown, the one God will give us at the fullness of our life. So, there is a deep link between sport and the spiritual dimension. Also, because the human person is one. We are our body, but we are not only physical, we are body, intelligence, reason, and also spirit.
Siamo corpo, intelligenza, razionalità, ma anche spirito.
At a press conference with Vatican journalist, Cardinal Jose Tolentino de Mendonica spoke about the deep relationship between faith and sport and explained how the Jubilee of Sport aims to highlight the importance of sports as a means of fostering community and spiritual growth. Only a handful of tickets remain, but for Saturday's celebration in Chicago of its native son, Pope Leo XIV, boy, a lot of people anticipating that. The day of prayer and music takes place at Wright Field, home of Major League Baseball's Chicago White Sox. It will also feature a mass and a special video message from the Holy Father. Pope Leo appears to be getting into the spirit as well. Earlier today, a picture of him emerged wearing a Chicago White Sox hat. Wow. Well, soon after his election, in a meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he received a personalized Chicago Bears jersey. The team is owned by the McCaskey family, and they are devout pro-life Catholics. And we turn now to Pat McCaskey, Vice President of the Chicago Bears and the Chairman of Sports Faith International, dedicated to inspiring and transforming culture through the world of sports. Pat, thanks for joining us. First off, how in the world is the city preparing for this Mass on Saturday in honor of Pope Leo? What is the mood like? This is a big deal.
Yes, it is. It's very uplifting, and all of Chicagoland is looking forward to it. This is a marvelous opportunity.
Absolutely. And obviously, we mentioned both Catholics and non-Catholics very excited about this. So in the big picture, what are you hoping people take away from this event or be thinking while they're there?
That the first Pope from the United States is from Chicago, but we are willing to share him with the world.
Absolutely. And the world is watching for sure as he gives his message. What an amazing moment this is going to be. As we mentioned, one of the gifts to the new Pope Leo was a Chicago Bears jersey. How did that come about? And do we know if Pope Leo is a Bears fan?
We're hopeful that he's a Bears fan. I think the jersey came from an anonymous donor, so I'm not entitled to reveal how that came to be. The Bears have Mass before every game, home and away, at the team hotel. And we try to get the Pope because we think our games are important. We offer $100 and 2 tickets. And Chuck Simpson said he probably doesn't know who to bring. So we haven't been able to have him say Mass for the Bears yet. But this is one giant step towards that goal.
Yeah, how special this is going to be. Earlier, we showed the new Holy Father wearing a White Sox hat, and he recently met with tennis star Jannik Sinner at the Vatican. What could it mean for the church to have a pope who enjoys sports so much? That's not something you hear every day.
We understand that the Pope is very interested in tennis, and I did some research prior to this interview that he was on the bowling team when he was in high school seminary. So he is extending the legacy of St. John Paul II, who was an athlete and encouraged sports.
Yeah, I'm quite sure he had a personal trainer too before he became Pope. At least that's what I hear. So in a 2018 article for EWTN's National Catholic Register, you wrote in part, quote, "For our family, being Catholic is not incidental. Being a good Catholic is more important than winning, but that doesn't mean you can't win as a good Catholic." So ideally, the two go together. Tell us what you mean by this.
We think it's important to win championships with sportsmanship. And I've written a Bears prayer, which I'd like to share with you.
Please do.
Bitterness is spiritual cancer. Forgiveness is spiritual rapture. Weather is a reminder that God is the boss. The Spirit strengthens us even after a loss. Jesus Christ is the man. Salvation is the plan. When we dance God's dance, He gives us another chance. God's work is efficient. His food is sufficient. Here's a part of my prayers. Bear down, Chicago Bears.
Amen. Pat McCaskey, pro-life Catholic and Vice President of the Chicago Bears, thank you so much. Have a wonderful event.
Thank you. Have a Hall of Fame day.
Absolutely. All right, well, we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tara Mergener. Good night, and God bless you.